To hear additional revisionist history, of course, about Mr. Bush's torture programs. But after the remarkable series of revelations earlier in the week, those torture programs merit our nightly question to the president-elect: what do we do now? A dozen former generals meeting with President-elect Obama's top legal advisors. In there with them, of course, Eric Holder, Obama's pick to be the Attorney General, Greg Craig, the incoming White House counsel. The generals hoping that torture and the bureaucratization of torture will stop immediately once Mr. Obama takes office. They want Gitmo closed. They want the end of the secret transfer of prisoners, rendition to countries that have a history of torture. More on that later in Bush. And no more authority for the CIA to use harsh interrogation methods, otherwise known as torture. Let's turn now to a man identifying himself as Matthew Alexander, who served for 14 years in the U.S. Air Force under his real name. During that time, personally conducting more than 300 interrogations, supervising more than 1,000. In 2006, he led an interrogations team assigned to Special Operations Task Force in Iraq. He's the author of How to Break a Terrorist, the U.S. interrogators who used brains, not brutality, to take down the deadliest man in Iraq, written under a pseudonym for security reasons. Sir, thank you for your time tonight.
Thanks for having me, Keith.
So, as the title of your book would suggest, torture is not necessary to get the job done, not even useful?
No, actually, it's extremely ineffective, and it's counterproductive to what we're trying to accomplish in both the short term and the long term. In the short term, when you torture somebody, it hardens their resolve. The information that you get is unreliable. And even if you do get reliable information, you're able to stop a terrorist attack. Al-Qaeda is then going to use the fact that we torture people to recruit new members, and then we're going to have to deal with a whole new wave of terrorists.
Torture as a recruiting tool for the other guys. I was particularly struck by that in your piece in the Washington Post the other day. How long is it going to take to undo that damage, to restore America's image in that way, to stop making that be, as you found, the primary reason that foreign fighters were going to Iraq was essentially to avenge the torture at Abu Ghraib and at Gitmo?
Well, Keith, I'm an optimist on that point. And in the book, I tell several stories about how I sat down with some hardened members of Al-Qaeda, and by treating them nicely, by showing them respect and showing that I understood their culture and their religion, I was able, in one case, in the case of the man who ultimately led us to Zarqawi, in a matter of 6 hours, I was able to convince him that we could work together and get over the past and work towards a better Iraq by working together, Sunnis and Americans together.
So, putting your experience together, along with what you've learned about the value of interrogation and the various different techniques, what would you say to the president-elect? What do you believe interrogation policy should look like in the Obama administration?
Well, first of all, I think the first thing we have to do is we have to outlaw torture across the entire government, every agency, no exceptions. And then the next thing we need to do is we need to improve the way that we train interrogators. I talk in the book about methods that I know from my experience as a criminal investigator that we use during criminal investigations that can be used in intelligence interrogations, but we're not using those, and we're not training our interrogators to use those. And in the book, I give several examples of how we use those to great success in this incredible chain of events that led to Zarqawi.
All right, so what are some of the effective, humane methods? I mean, you described being able to turn somebody around in a few hours. What should be the Obama standard in terms of those kinds of techniques?
Well, first of all, the approach we need to take from the very beginning is one of rapport-based relationship-building approaches, where we get to know the person, we build a relationship of trust, and then we use things such as intellect and ingenuity to find ways to work together. You know, the way we approach interrogations in general is very important, because interrogations overall is just one facet of how we execute this war. And it has to be conducted in a way that's consistent with American principles. And when we torture, that's not consistent with American principles. That's not what we stand for. And in the book, I talk about how my group of interrogators dared to think a little bit outside the box and use new techniques and achieve great successes.
Since torture is not consistent with American principles, as you point out so aptly and so succinctly, give me your assessment, having been on the front lines. Is there value to the idea raised that the Obama administration should either pursue prosecutions against those who were ordered to or perhaps voluntarily tortured, or should there be that other path that has been suggested, sort of a fact-finding 9/11 Commission-style investigation of what happened, merely to make sure it doesn't happen again?
You know, Keith, I'm not one who can judge or say who should be held accountable for the abuses that have happened in the past. I'm more concerned with the future and moving ahead and improving our interrogation process. I think as far as accountability goes, I'm still in the reserves, I'm still an officer, and I still support my chain of command. But my interest is to improve the way we interrogate so that we can keep our country safer.
The former U.S. military interrogator and author of How to Break a Terrorist, who identifies himself now for our purposes as Matthew Alexander, under whatever name. Thanks for your time and your service to this country, especially, I think, the one you're performing now.
Thank you.
And what does this country owe the